Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Light Sports Ramble. Tonight we're going to get back onto the fantasy topic. It's a rainy night in Indianapolis, but we're going to talk quarterbacks tonight. And of course, since it's related to fantasy, I've got to give a shout out to my endorsement with Fantasy World Order. It's FWO365.com. It's a great website for all your fantasy needs. Get there, sign up for a league. I know leagues are still forming. Draft days are coming up. But like I have done with my other evaluations of fantasy football, I went to ESPN and I printed off the top 50. And I've got some major question marks. Like really major question marks. I know I'm a Packer fan, diehard Packer fan, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the number one fantasy quarterback. Why would you not take Peyton Manning first? Why? They added Wes Welker to an already good receiving core. To me, that's a no-brainer. And there's question marks in that Packer offense. Jordy Nelson has not stayed healthy for 16 games in the last 2 years. Now, Randall Cobb is emerging. You got James Jones. And you got Finley at tight end. And possibly a running game. But from pure speculation, Manning has the better receiving core. And Drew Brees being number 2, I'm not really sold on that one either. He's got Jimmy Graham, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of weapons on the outside. Brees will be Brees. But I don't think it's a shoo-in that he's the number 2 guy. And Tom Brady lost Hernandez at tight end. And Welker. Is Brady going to put up those fantasy points again? These are some things to think about, folks. Just because they're proven players from the past, you really need to look at what are the weapons on the outside. I'm moving Brady down my draft board. I'm moving Kaepernick ahead of Brady. There is so many question marks with these normally top guys that it makes you wonder. Are they going to put up the numbers that they usually put up? Now, they're great quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong. They make players better. But we're not talking about wins and losses here, folks. We're talking about fantasy football. Who's going to get you the points? There's even a question with Griffin and his knee. But if that knee's healthy, there's a guy that's going to give you some points. So just a lot of questions when I look at the rankings. I was kind of in awe a little bit, and I just looked at the top and said, wow, question there, question there, question there. I think Matt Ryan, they have him at 6. I think he might move into that class of top point getters. Yeah, they got Steven Jackson, but he may have the best receiving core in the NFC, and I think they're going to put up some big yards. You got Jones. You got White. Gonzalez came back. He'll move the chains. Steven Jackson can catch the ball to the backfield. I don't think they're going to be a running team. I think they're still going to pass. So Matt Ryan is somebody I think I'm moving up my draft board. I think he's higher than number 6. I also think Matthew Stafford should move up a little bit. Even with Reggie Bush coming in, I think the Lions are still going to be behind in games and they're going to have to pass. And that means Megatron's getting his catches. Stafford's going to throw him the ball. Those things are going to happen. And so you might want to think about Stafford even as your number 1 guy. Because the other thing is, I think Bush out of the backfield is going to give him another option, a check down option, which should cut down on his turnovers if he has that check down guy. But they have Stafford at number 9. I think he can move up a little bit. They got Cam Newton at 5. And I understand Cam Newton can run and he can throw. But who's he throwing to? I'm trying to figure out where the numbers are going to come from this year. Because if he's doing it purely on his legs, I'm not sure if he's going to give you the points you need. Not really sure. I would move Kaepernick ahead of Newton. And I know there's an injury there with Crabtree, but he's still got Vernon Davis, and they got a running game, and Kaepernick's going to run. Just a thought. The one that really surprised me the most, though, was Matt Schaub at number 22. How do you put Matt Schaub at 22? You're really telling me that you have Michael Vick ahead of Matt Schaub, you have Joe Flacco ahead of Matt Schaub, you have Ben Roethlisberger ahead of Matt Schaub. I don't agree with that. He's got Johnson. They drafted Hopkins, who I think is going to be a great receiver in the NFL. So, I'm not sure who put this list together, but really, 22nd? I'd definitely move him up. I think he is one of those guys that could be a number 1 quarterback for you, not a 22nd guy. I mean, it all depends on your draft and who's available. But man, 22nd, he really got the short end of the stick. But as we move on and I look at some of these second-tier guys that may not be number 1s, but you may want to take a chance on a number 2. Some of the so-called, I guess, sleeper picks that you want to talk about. I think Jay Cutler's a sleeper pick. I think he's a guy that actually could eventually, if you get him as number 2, might move him to number 1. Just all depends. Because Trustman's an offensive guy. He's going to pass the ball. Forte catches the ball to the backfield. He's got Brandon Marshall. So you know what, folks? That might be a good number 2 quarterback for you. Could move into number 1 at some point. I also think Andy Dalton's a good pickup. He's got A.J. Green. I think Dalton's progressing. I think he's turning into a very, very solid quarterback. And you know what, folks? He didn't look so good in the Hall of Fame game in his first series. But I think you might want to take a chance on Ryan Tannehill in the second as your second quarterback. Got Dustin Keller at tight end. Mike Wallace and Hartline. It's a good receiving core. Now, can Tannehill deliver and get him the ball? That's the question. But why not take a chance if you got a decent number 1? Take him as number 2 because Wallace is going to spread the field. I think Wallace will get some catches. And they got Keller for the red zone. And the running back position is not really solid right now. So they may have to pass the ball a lot. And then they have Alex Smith at 25. I totally disagree here. I totally disagree with Alex Smith at 25. I think he may be the biggest sleeper pick in the draft. You can't base it off of numbers and system from prior years. You got to look at what is the potential for this year. And I mentioned it in an earlier ramble. I feel bad for Jamal Charles. Andy Reid is the new head coach. And what does Andy Reid like to do? He likes to pass the ball. And you know what, Alex Smith? I think you're a good quarterback. Not a great quarterback, not an elite quarterback. You know how to manage the game and take care of the ball. And now you've got a coach that's going to let you throw. I think you are the most underrated 25th pick in this ESPN draft board. Now, I may not go with you number 1, but I definitely would move you up higher than 25. And I think you might be one of the first picks as a number 2. So that's my take on the quarterbacks, folks. And as you can see from the video, a little bit of a monsoon coming down in Indianapolis tonight. Stay safe. Again, my endorsement to FWO365.com, Fantasy World Order. Check it out. Great website for fantasy. I'll see you at the next red light. As always, my pleasure. Have a good night.